Please read the disclaimer. XRP Bitcoin Clarity Act update. Hello, beautiful people. Shalom, money makers. XRP and Bitcoin are very happy on the news that we saw this morning. We're going to talk about all that. All I ask from you is to give me a beautiful smile to send out those good vibes. Smash that like button and let's get into it. So currently XRP is sitting at $1.40, up 3.3% on the day. We got Bitcoin up almost 4% at 3.9% on the day, sitting at 68,854. Ethereum once again over to the 2,000 level, up 5%, and Solana up almost 8% on the day. This is all coming from the news that the CPI inflation falls to 2.4%, below expectations of 2.5. Core CPI inflation fell to 2.5, in line with expectations of 2.5. Core CPI inflation is now at its lowest level since March of 2021. Odds of further interest rate cuts are back on the rise. And if you watched the video this morning, we talked about the scenarios, and the scenario that we got here was lower than expected, so cool CPI, and then we had a pump, right? And then we could potentially see a continuation of a short squeeze over the weekend as traders FOMO in before Monday. The only problem is that this Monday, there's no trading on the stock market because of President's Day, right? And so the fact is that we could get delayed till Tuesday. This is a very long weekend here. And the only thing that's going to be trading until Tuesday is crypto. And so it's going to be very interesting to see what happens here with XRP, what happens with the rest of the crypto market. If we go and we look at the liquidation heat map, so you can see that for the most part it is shorts, but you can see it's kind of a mixed bag because over the last 4 hours, almost 2 million for Bitcoin on the long and almost 2.6 million on the short. So it's a kind of a mixed bag here. I'm thinking because what happened was we had this nice move up, right? And people again over leveraged themselves, and then just a little bit of a smush, right? Just 1 or 2% people using very high leverage, and so then we're seeing again also longs getting liquidated here. Very interesting scenario. But if we go again out a little bit more, then 12 hours, it's 100 million for Bitcoin, 52 million there for Ethereum, and Solana also 15 million. XRP only with the 2 million liquidations on the short. So most of the squeeze happened there for Bitcoin and Ethereum, much larger levels. So it will be very interesting to see what happens here with the crypto market. You can see some of the moving averages flipped. So we got the simple moving average flipped to a buy, and we got the whole moving average flipped to a buy. The rest are still sells. And so this is a very interesting situation, right? Just a little bit of a rise, right? And things start flipping. So if we see a continuation here, then potentially we could see the crypto market recovering a little bit. When we're looking at the 4-hour chart, what I want to see, and it could be very critical here, is a very long time since Bitcoin was at 94,000 and XRP was all the way back here at $2.11. We have crossed over here on the 1348 EMA. We are very close to a crossover from the bottom to the top on the 4-hour chart. So that's something that I am going to be watching. And if that does cross over, we've seen historically when we have these kinds of actions, right, then there's a possibility for a nice movement, in the next coming few days. So we'll see how this plays out. Again, this could be a few days movement that we could potentially see here. On the daily chart, we're still far away from that potentially happening. Then also on the daily, we do have a little bit more on the stochastic RSI to move up here. So we're not overextended to the upside just yet. Very interesting price action that we are seeing right now. Stocks are doing okay today. It's kind of a mixed bag. You can see S&P 500 is down, right? The NASDAQ is flat. It was up a little bit more, but again, also a little bit of a pullback here over the past few hours. going into this long weekend that we are seeing potentially here with President's Day. So again, it's something that you need to take into consideration. Now, it is Freaky Friday and it's also Friday the 13th. So watch out. Don't be, spooked by a ghoul or something like that. I always find it funny as an adult, Friday the 13th, because when you're a kid, it's scary, right? But when you're an adult, you understand that there's stuff, real life stuff to be scared of, right? So I just want to remind you that this video is for educational, for entertainment purposes only. Hopefully you're entertained. Not financial advice. Always do your own due diligence before you decide to invest. Very, very important. Also, if you keep coming back to see my beautiful face, now is the time to subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to do that and smash the like button, drop a comment. All those things are very, very important for the success of the channel. So I really appreciate that if you do those things. You can see risk is back on. It's funny to think back last week how Thursday we were so down, and then Friday we were feeling good, and then this whole week has just been like a dud, right? We went from very extreme emotions to basically not a lot happening over the week, and then today we're seeing risk kind of come back a little bit with this good CPI print. So potentially this could be, you can see capital is flowing back into higher beta assets after the low CPI print. So we'll see how this continues over the next coming days and weeks. We also do have, though, the Supreme Court announces that February 20th, so just a week from today, will be its next opinion day as markets await their ruling on the legality of President Trump's tariffs. Remember, they kept pushing this and pushing this and pushing this. Well, now February 20th is the next day that we have a possibility of them ruling. Will it happen? I don't know. We'll have to see. We've been disappointed all the previous times when they haven't. It is what it is right now. Okay. Interestingly, we did get information coming out of the White House, right? It says here, Justin, White House officially says trillions of dollars are waiting to enter the crypto market. Now, there's a lot of fake news that is going around, but theoretically, if there is trillions of dollars, let's say there is, right? Think about this, just how we had here for XRP, only 4 million and 3 million, in the past few hours from Coinbase and up. I think if this is trillions potentially coming in the market, how much potentially the crypto market could grow when we're looking at it and thinking about how, by many people's standard, assets were running and crypto was not. XRP wasn't running, Bitcoin wasn't running, while stock market was running, precious metals were running, the M2 was running, and crypto was falling behind. So a lot of people are now looking at crypto as, oh, wait a second, maybe it's time. Again, there's a lot of opinions out there. You have to decide what's best for you, short term, medium term, and long term, okay, at the end of the day. So it's very, very important. I try to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, there is this video going around interwebs, and some people are claiming that in the video that the Treasury Secretary is saying that if the bill passes, that Bitcoin will recover as soon as that happens. And that's not really what he says. So I want us to listen to what he had to say here in the video.
Crypto community. So, in a time when we are having one of these historically volatile sell-offs, I think some clarity on the clarity bill would give great comfort to the market, and we could move forward from there. So it's very important to get this done. And I think if the Democrats were to take the House, which is far from my best case, then the prospects of getting a deal done will just fall apart. I mean, look what the Democrats did to crypto under the Biden administration. It was almost an extinction event, and President Trump has worked to make the U.S. the digital asset capital of the world. There's a lot of innovation that goes on adjacent to crypto in the blockchain, in DeFi. So I think it's important to get this clarity bill done as soon as possible and on the president's desk this spring.
So just think about what he just said there. Think about where we are right now and think about what potentially he kind of did say that if Clarity Act passes, then confidence will come back into the crypto market. So you could say that what's going around is kind of true. But think about what he said, how the Democrats, right, when Biden was in power, were just dismantling the crypto market. They were going after it with the SEC lawsuits, and it was just being castrated, right? That's the word? I think so. And now President Trump wants to make crypto, America the capital of crypto, right? The crypto capital of the world. That's what I wanted to say. Um, and yet the price action is maybe one of it at its worst. Does it make sense? Not to me, right? Like if we go back and we look at the price action and we look at what's happening, remember people when we were running up here uh, prior, people weren't thinking, oh, in 2021, oh, President Trump's going to come back. No, people weren't even thinking about that back then. But the market was pumping, even though all the things that the Democrats were doing against the crypto market. And yes, FTX and Luna that crashed the prices. But if none of that would have happened, then we would probably have stayed around these levels of 30, 40, but there would have been a pullback because that's how every single cycle happens. But right now, there's no bad thing that is coming. The only thing is the Clarity Act not passing. Is since the Clarity Act kind of got smushed there with Coinbase pulling out, we've seen the crypto market basically collapse. And if it comes back on, then there's high probability that we see a V-shaped recovery. And that's what Secretary Besson is trying to tell us here. And that's why he says if you care about the prices of crypto, then you should have the interest, of course, that Clarity Act passes, because if it does pass, then confidence by big institutions is going to come back. I don't think that retail is sitting right and biting its nails if Clarity passes or not, right? I think it's more a sense of institutions. If institutions are looking at this and they have clarity, right? And we've talked about this a lot in the channel, that big institutions, big money, they like clarity. They like when they know what the laws are, what the regulations are, what their taxation is, what's going to happen if they do this, and what's going to happen if they do that, right? If they go into an investment, they want a business plan. They want to know what's their potential return, what's the potential risk. When a usual Joe Schmo, right, goes into the crypto market, he's not doing all this analysis and he's not doing, the research probably, right? Maybe he is, but for the most part, most people aren't. Somebody's going to tell them, do this, do that, and that's probably what they're going to do, which is, of course, not the way to go. But usually people with no experience, this is just what they do because they don't have the time. They work a 9 to 5 and they don't have time to watch my videos and and they don't have time to, read articles and see what's happening geopolitically and know what the latest financial data that it's coming out. Most people don't, they're tired. They're working 8-hour shift. They're working 12-hour shift. They don't have the strength at the end of the day to think about this. They don't have the capacity. And on the weekend, they want to hang out with friends and family, right? So retail doesn't care, right? It's not what's happening here. It's the big money, right? And the big money, of course, they operate differently. So it's going to be very interesting to see if Clarity Act eventually passes. There's also this interview here, and it's kind of long. It's from the White House crypto advisor Patrick Witt. Let's take a listen a little bit. It's 9 minutes. You know what? Maybe I'll make it fast so we can get through it very fast, because I think it's important to understand what the White House is thinking and what the White House is wanting. Okay.
Council of Advisors for Digital Assets. Patrick, welcome on Yahoo Finance. Good to see you here this morning. Let's start on that Clarity Act, because we heard a lot about it last night from Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong on his earnings call. What is the status of this?
So the status right now, the House passed the Clarity Act, their version of it last year, over to the House in July, I believe, and the Senate has taken it up and made its own changes to it and is fashioning their own version. We were able to pass half of the bill out of the Ag Committee that handles the CFTC portions, and now we're just stuck in the Banking Committee for the SEC portions, the securities portions of that bill. So there was a markup that was scheduled on, I believe, January 18th, and unfortunately got pulled down, postponed, but we're working hard to address the issues that were raised that led to the postponement of that markup, and hopefully get that back on the books soon. And then once we pass that out of the Banking Committee, the two pieces of the legislation will need to be reconciled before a final vote on the floor. So more work to be done, but we're a step closer with the passage of the ag portion of this a couple weeks ago.
I want to stop for a second. He spoke fast, but so complicated to get a law passed, right? Especially here, it had to go through the House and then the Senate. But then in the Senate, it doesn't have to only go through Banking Committee. It has to go through the Agriculture Committee as well, because the Senate, the Banking Committee is regulates the SEC, and the Agriculture Committee regulates the CFTC. Why so complicated? Anywho, this is just something that I wanted to get out of my chest. It is what it is, but it's very complicated.
Patrick, who has to bend a little bit ultimately to get this over the finish line? Is it the crypto community or the banking community?
Not to be cliche, it's a little bit of both, and we've encouraged both parties. We've had conversations individually. We've hosted a number of meetings here at the White House. We might host another one again next week on this issue of stablecoin rewards and yield. And it's unfortunate that this has become such a big issue, because ultimately this is not the stablecoin bill. That was the Genius Act. But we've heard from senators on both sides of the aisle concerns about potential deposit flight from stablecoins on different platforms. And so what we've encouraged both sides to do is let's find a middle ground. Let's use a scalpel heel here to address this narrow issue of idle yield, let's call it. But let's not take a chainsaw to this. Let's not let this derail the bill. There is so much goodness in this bill, no matter what your perspective is. The banks, there's a lot of permissible activities. It allows these institutions to now play in the crypto space in a way that without that regulatory clarity, they wouldn't be able to. And then obviously from the crypto side, the regulatory jurisdiction, the clear lines between the SEC, the CFTC, developer protections in the bill. There's just a litany of excellent measures in here that are critical to future-proof this industry from a future Gary Gensler or, God forbid, a Secretary of the Treasury Elizabeth Warren. So we want to make sure that people are approaching this the right way, that they recognize the value of this bill. And we're going to keep working to make it better, but ultimately it is a good product at the end of the day.
In this
That was funny. God forbid. It's interesting that this Clarity Act is getting, like you said, it should have been hashed out in the stablecoin bill, because this is stablecoin related, right? It's not, the Clarity Act is supposed to be about what's a security, what's not a security, have guidelines for the banks, have guidelines for the crypto companies. And yet the thing that's making everything stuck is this fakakta stablecoin yields. It's kind of I don't know if it's irony, but it's kind of strange, right?
spirit of compromise, Patrick, do you think the crypto industry just has to get off this view that it's going to be able to pay rewards on stablecoins? Does that get it through?
Again, as I said, there's a way to address this that doesn't disrupt a lot of the business models in the space and also addresses the bank concern. So this is a major item. It's not the only one. There's still some issues on Title I with tokenization, the token taxonomy, and the authorities between the SEC and the CFTC, making sure that the SEC isn't swallowing too much of the CFTC's jurisdiction. And then on Title III with DeFi, illicit finance. So there are other issues that we need to work through, but this is a main sticking item, and we're not going to be able to get this out of the Banking Committee unless we address this issue. So that's why we've taken it so seriously, why we've hosted the different interested stakeholders here at the White House, and we're going to continue to stay at the table and encourage them to find a compromise on this issue, because it really is the major gating item.
We'd love to get your take on this one. You know, when I talk to banking executives on this particular issue, they say that community banks just might struggle to lend to businesses if these crypto players are allowed to pay these rewards. I mean, do you share those concerns?
There's been a number of studies that have pointed in either direction. I think ultimately our bottom line is consumers win when there's choice. But we've heard from a number of senators, and again, it's bipartisan on this issue, that they want to make sure that the concerns of the community banks are addressed, that we're not doing anything that would cause deposit flight from their platforms. They are important pillars of the various communities around the country. And so I think we can do that. I think we're fashioning a compromise. Last week's meeting between the banks and the crypto companies, I think, broke some new ground, established some new common ground, some areas of agreement, and we'll build upon that. But whether or not we agree with that view, I think I've seen studies that point in either direction. Ultimately, there's going to be a convergence between crypto and the banks. Right now, it is a new product. It's somewhat threatening to the community banks, and not just the community banks, but also the GSIBs, the larger banks. But they're ultimately going to start getting into the crypto space. They can also offer stablecoin products to their customers, just the same as crypto. This is not an unfair advantage in either way. And then many of the banks are now applying for OCC bank charters themselves to start offering bank-like products to their customers. So in the future, I don't think this is going to be an issue, but we're managing through an interim period where there's a lot of people on the bank side of the table that feel threatened by this, but ultimately I think they're going to find opportunities to use these products and leverage them and offer new products to their customers and expand their businesses.
Should a Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan be threatened?
I don't think so. I think there's tremendous opportunity for the JP Morgans of the world to engage in crypto activities. If you just go to LinkedIn, there's plenty of job postings at JP Morgan hiring people into the digital asset space. So I think they're indicating that they intend to get into this space in a big way. They were present at last week's meeting, very constructive.
Remember, Jamie Dimon was the one that said that it should go to zero and it's nothing and all that, right? And now he's jumping on the bandwagon.
And I think on the stablecoin part of this, there's the consumer banking side, but then there's also the institutional bank side. And as more and more liquidity gets added to treasury markets with stablecoin being backed by T-bills, there's a lot of activity and commercial activity that the larger banks that have rates trading operations can get into. So I think for those larger banks that have those kinds of business lines and large practices there, they recognize what an opportunity this is.
Brian Armstrong over Coinbase. He sounded a little more optimistic, Patrick, last night on his earnings call about Clarity getting passed, at least compared to what we heard from him at Davos in January. Do you think this ultimately gets passed in the first quarter, or is this more mid-year?
We're definitely on the clock. There's a window here. The window is still open, but it is rapidly closing. And so that's why we are taking it so seriously, why we're encouraging folks to cut the deals that they can, to stay at the table. Let's not let any moss grow here. We got to get this done because, as I mentioned, it's one step in the process. If we can get this out of the banking committee, it still needs to be reconciled with the ag portion. And ultimately, there's going to be a cloture vote and a passage on the floor. That all takes time. And the most precious real estate in Washington, D.C. is Senate floor time. So we're in regular touch with Leader Thune about that. But he knows that this is a priority for the president, priority for my boss, David Sachs. And I do believe we're going to get this done. I won't necessarily put a date on it. But before the midterms really start to take all the oxygen out of the room, we have people engaged at the table that have invested countless hours on this bill, and we're going to get it done.
Lastly, Patrick, you're in the trenches on the Bitcoin reserve that is being built out here in the country. Where does that stand?
So with the passage of the executive order, what we wanted to do with that is get an accounting of what the government held and then also stop the bleeding. So stop these agencies from willy-nilly liquidating digital assets that they had, sometimes at fire sale prices. I think by some estimates, based on the sales and the way that they were conducted under the previous administration, we the government may have lost out on tens of billions of dollars that could have been held on our balance sheet. So right now we've stopped the bleeding. We're in regular touch with the agencies, monitoring the current status of the digital assets that they hold, making sure that the accounting is complete, not just Bitcoin, but obviously many of the wallets hold different digital assets in there that need to be appropriately accounted for. And then on the Hill, there's the Bitcoin Act that Senator Lummis had introduced. There's going to be a new bill introduced by Representative Begich in the House that builds upon that and allows some of the necessary authorities to centralize, properly safeguard these assets, and then explore budget-neutral ways to add to that stockpile. And then in the future, ultimately, if Congress decides to move in that direction, to allow for us to potentially add to that with outright purchases. But that would need to be an appropriations decision.
So very interesting interview here, and just giving us a little bit more clarity about the Clarity Act. It's going to be very interesting to see how fast this can get done. I don't know, my light is going crazy again. I think it has to do if I go like a long time, it starts freaking out on me. So if you see like I'm suddenly getting very bright white, that's I'm already pretty pretty like Casper the Friendly Ghost, right? Anywho, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens here in the next coming weeks with the Clarity Act. Does it, get pushed into the high priority because of the potential of these midterm elections and the Democrats taking control? Although he did say that it is bipartisan, so it seems that both parties want to get this done. So maybe even if there is a flip right after the midterm elections, it would probably still get passed. But the president really wants to get it done before then. So it's going to be very interesting to see what is the compromise that happens in the end, and will the crypto market eventually start giving a smile right after the Clarity Act passed. I think a lot of the crypto market current situation is riding on that. We'll see. It's going to be very, very interesting. Let me know in the comment section. What do you think? Do you think we're going to pass it before the midterm elections or after the midterm elections? Let me know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and thank you for watching. I hope to see you next time. And like I always say, let's make a lot of money.